Hey guys, I'm live. How you guys doing? I'm going to do some road rant, 2 different topics I want to cover in this rant. First, I just ran into a street Christian, street preaching dude. And we had an interesting talk that showed how brainwashed he was. And I had to go on. I had to move on. I had other things to do, places to go. He said, "Do you believe in God?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well," but I said, "I don't serve him." He acted like, "Why?" And I said, "Well, God sends people to hell. I'm not serving him." He goes, "No, you choose hell." I go, "Well, no, I didn't make hell. I'm not even the one that decides who goes there and who doesn't. In fact, hell was made for demons, Satan and his demons." And he said, "That's right." And I said, "So we don't deserve hell. We don't deserve it." He goes, "No, we don't deserve it." And then I had to cross the street. See how his argument refuted his own point. He just didn't know it or admit it. If we don't deserve hell because we're not evil enough, then God is unjust. And why serve an unjust God who's not only unjust, but gives you an unjust punishment of eternal hell just because he can? But he didn't see any of that. He just kept his plastic smile on his face as I walked across the street, and unchanged and unmoved by the whole conversation. Nothing will move him because he's brainwashed. And, enough said. No, not enough said. I have one more thing to say about that. I believe that Jesus taught courage is a good thing. It's just a movie, but when I was a kid, I saw the greatest story ever told on TV. And when they showed Jesus as a boy in the temple, he was preaching to the priests, and he said, "Don't you think courage is a good quality?" That's what this kid Jesus was talking about in this movie called The Greatest Story Ever Told. Well, that's just a story, but it's not inconsistent with what Jesus taught. Is not courage a good thing? I think rhetorically it is a good thing. Now, in the ages of the gladiators and all that, the Christians, it took courage to be a Christian because Christians were torn apart by lions in stadiums, according to the Bible. That took courage to be a Christian. But in the Dark Ages, it took courage to not be one because they cut off your hands if you weren't a Christian. Now today, we don't have either of those 2 extremes, meaning that Christians aren't torn apart by lions and non-Christians aren't getting their hands cut off or stuck in Iron Maiden torture devices. But in the middle somewhere, the majority of people today are Christian. So it takes very little courage to be a Christian anymore. It takes very little courage to be in the major portion of society, to have the backing of the majority who almost always claims to be right, or claims to be right and uses its majority as supposed proof or evidence that it's right. And if you're a Christian, all you have to do is follow the crowd. You don't have to do anything unusual. Just pay your tithe, go to church, be good, or at least seem to be good, or whatever, and whatever good is and whatever, and just be like everybody else. That takes very little courage. I'm not saying it takes no courage, but it takes very little courage. If you're able to dress on Sunday and drive your car to church, and you're able to act polite and nice, and you're able to give whatever tithe you have to or don't have to give, and do your time, then you can be a Christian. I fail to see what's courageous about that. However, what I'm doing, which is not the majority, it's not the norm, it's frowned upon, it's not even considered normal, takes courage. And yet it's what I believe, so it's the same principle as a true Christian, only I'm the one being persecuted, not the Christian. So it takes more courage to be me than it does to be a typical Christian, even a sincere Christian. Because I'm outside the norm. I take the leap into faith of whatever the cost, whatever the appearance, whatever the optics. I don't just go with the crowd because it's actually the easiest, it's the path of least resistance, it's the easiest choice. It takes the least amount of courage to be a Christian these days. Sure, in the gladiator days, sure, hallelujah to the Christians. They let themselves get torn apart by lions. That's actually admirable. Or whatever they actually had to go through, getting burned in furnaces or whatever. But it takes no courage. It takes no such courage, or not even any courage, really, these days to be a Christian. It does take courage to do what I'm doing because it's not the accepted normal, and it's not the majority what the majority does. And yet I'm doing it because I believe in it. I should get street cred just for that alone. Plus, it takes courage to do what I do. Anyway, the next topic. I did a jam I like called the Rockology this morning, and I want to talk about what changed in my playing since the last jam. A few days ago, I consciously added sweep picking to my technique. I've got good sweep picking. I consciously decided to be a sweeper, not of floors and sidewalks, but of guitar strings. I added sweeping to my list of skills that I consider on the guitar. And so that's cool. I think I showed some of that. I made some new licks that I don't think have been done before. At least not exactly the way I did them in the Rockology. It's a kind of a pun because when they go to church, this is Sunday, when they go to church, they sometimes sing the doxology. Well, I played the Rockology. Anyway, almost rhymed. It's not quite, doesn't quite rhyme, but close. So I think there's 4. I'm going to go out, and then we'll end the talk in just a second here. I think I've had 4 now that I add the sweep picking technique as a breakthrough. I think I've had 4 main breakthroughs in my guitar technique since I started playing. First of all, I learned tapping when I was 16. That was cool. Then I learned alternate picking when I was 28. That was cool. And then I learned to use my little pinky and do legato in my 40s maybe. And now sweep picking in my 50s. So 4 main types of guitar and each breakthroughs I've had. Love you guys. Peace, love, and rock and roll.